This video is going to show you a solo master Nightfall, getting platinum rank, the first Nightfall of the season of the which is Lightblade. Since I'm fresh at doing a Lightblade, because I only recently just done one, I figured that I would quickly do a master clear. And to rerun it with Strand, because my Lightblade solo GM clear last season was a Strand build. That was on Hunter though, not Titan. This run's done on a Titan because we have a new Strand aspect called Banner of War, which is such an amazing aspect, the best Strand aspect I've seen so far. And I'll tell you a couple of. I mean, I don't know too much about it, if I'm being honest. I've only used it for an hour, so I don't know every little detail about Banner of War. But I'm not dumb enough not to know the pros about the aspect. And I'll talk about it more as it sort of comes up when I use it and stuff. So we're using a Strand build with the shackle setup. So I'm still using the shackle setup from last season, which has been nerfed. And you're going to see the contrast between what it used to be to what it is now. Does that mean that you shouldn't run shackle in endgame PvE? The answer is you might still want to use shackle sometimes, because, well, you'll see. I'm in solo endgame content right now. Master Nightfalls are tough compared to what the old Master Nightfalls used to be. They are at a -20 delta. Solo GMs are -25 delta. So there's little difference between a master and a GM. If we're being completely honest, you may as well just call them a GM because they're very similar. Like I've soloed both GM and Master Nightfalls, and I can honestly tell you, the Master Nightfalls feel like GMs. They just do. So I done a rocket there, not expecting the champ to be unstunned by shackle so soon. So he actually got out of my shackle way sooner than I expected. It looks like it's like a 3-second stun, the shackle grenade, right? So it's a lot less than what it used to be. Well, it's miles less, but you will see it still has massive utility at the boss, right? You're gonna see that shackle's still something that you can still run, but you really do want to experiment with other builds, which I will do. But for Lightblade, you must understand, when you soloing the champions at the boss, it can be a little bit of a nightmare dealing with them. So shackle's still a fantastic ability. Strand in general, because it has another aspect. There's not just shackle. You can also shackle a champ or an enemy type with your super. Because there's I can't remember the fragment. Is it binding? You create a suspend and burst when you're in your super and stuff. That's a fantastic little aspect. And you can shackle enemies with the Titan super, with its heavy attack, right? So there's still ways and means of soloing a champ with a shackle setup, but I'll talk about that when we get to the boss. So this first room, right, to make the room easier for yourself, you want to take out the two barriers and the Lightblade warrior. Don't take out too many acolytes until those 3 priority targets are killed. Then you'll get another Lightblade warrior spawn here. Look at the damage we're doing, by the way. Huge damage, because we're using Symphoceps. Remember, Symphoceps stacks with the stuff. We then got a kill to then proc Banner of War, which is a Roman healing rift type thing that's Strand. Not maybe, let's call it Strand Restoration, because that's sort of how it's reacting. It's like Restoration, but Strand. This is so good. Why didn't they launch it like this? I mean, I know they do the whole thing with, we'll give you another aspect every season. No, just give me the lot. When you launched Lightfall, just give me all the aspects, because I know they were developed. They didn't just develop them last season. They were developed at Lightfall's launch. They just stagger the aspects. I don't want them doing that anymore, but it doesn't matter because they've done it now. I'm just saying, why didn't they just launch Strand with every fragment? They've done this with Stasis as well. It took like 12 months to get all the fragments and all the aspects. I just want all that stuff at launch. to make more of an impact when you get that subclass. So there's so multiple builds. Because when Strand first came out, there was only one build, Shackle. Now there's multiple builds. Right. What we now? We're nearly September. It's plus 6 months plus to get all this stuff. In future, launch everything that you've got, right, rather than staggering stuff. Because we don't want this time gate stuff anymore. We just want to, when you launch your content, get it all in. Don't worry about the future and stuff. I'm on about here and now. I'm playing the game here and now. I want all the fragments, everything, because they're not just developing them the season before. They've developed them all beforehand, because they always work 6 months in advance of themselves. So they've already got this stuff developed. I want it in the game as it comes out. It's really simple, as I say, from this room, especially with Strand. We can use Unstoppable Fusion, right? Because that's an artifact mod. So this is good. It means I can use a fusion in Lightblade, and it will be this case for obviously GM. This is fantastic because the fusion rifle's decent at the boss fight. It's not that good getting up to the boss fight because you fight them from range for the most case, but that's where Wish Ender's going to come in, and you're going to be able to one-shot all enemies. This is the same on GM. Like if this was a GM run, this run would have been almost identical. If this was, just imagine, close your eyes just for a little second. This is GM. GMs are out, right? This run would have went pretty much exactly the same way. My playstyle does not change. Some of you get confused out there. You see a label, and you think GMs aren't out. There is no difficult Nightfalls yet. That's untrue. Master Nightfalls are very, very similar to GMs. They are almost identical, and that's coming from a guy that has analysed Nightfalls since 2014, 2015 maybe. You could say 2015, because I wasn't soloing Nightfalls in 2014, but I've analysed them since then. The gameplay is exactly the same, right? So this video, you could watch it. Say you're watching this video when GMs are out. You could literally just use this video and the strats that I've used and copy it, emulate it exactly. So this was like my first proper run with Banner of War. So I needed to see what I can do, because the shackle grenade's 3 seconds now. You shackle an enemy for like 3 seconds or whatever. I'm just taking an educated guess. I haven't timed that, but it feels that way. So I need to know if I can actually solo kill a champion with a full super and a shackle grenade. Is that possible? I'm going to test it right now. So yeah, I'm going to test that right now, even though I don't need to. Well, I do need to. I don't need to super this champ, but it's smart if I test it right now, so then I know that when I get to the boss fight, I can actually make use of this build. So I'll shackle first, then super. Now, what I could have done is shackled and rocket, but I wanted to test it at its worst possible form. So I play an efficient to see if I still get the job done, and I still got the job done. So imagine I shackle, rocket, then super. The champ's done for. Then we get Banner of Water proc. You can see, because my guess is that because your super is classed as a melee super, when you melee the ad with your super or the enemy type, Banner of War procs. This is so good. This is literally the best fragment for Lightblade, because look, when you get the 2 sets of barriers spawn up, everyone dies there, man. You have to multitask the boss and everything. If you can just shackle the champ, super him, get Banner of Water proc, you can run around the map with health regen on Strand. This is literally, I don't think there's a better class for this. I don't even think Curse Reach is better than this, because Curse Reach has a weakness at the boss. What's the weakness? Well, the weakness is that you need to get an initial barrier stun with your Wish Ender. Strand doesn't require this because you've already stunned. That's an objective outlook, but that means that it's a better class to use for Lightblade solo GM as opposed to Arc Warlock. Despite how good Arc Warlock is, though, but we're talking in the realms of champions, and Strand is still better for barriers, but that also works either way. Arc Warlock, or any Arc class, I guess, is objectively better for overloads. So you need to fine tune what elements you use, and depending on what GM that you're doing. This is barrier focused, right? So you run the best barrier stuff. Wish Ender, still best in slot. We've got barrier auto up again. Why? I mean, well, we know why. I've told you why. It's because of Monte Carlo. But we've still got barrier auto, which means that's not very good. There's not many good water rifles apart from Quicksilver Storm. But even Quicksilver Storm, I don't think is as good as Wish Ender, because Wish Ender has the infinite range. It's a Master GM. It's a Master Nightfall that is a GM. So I'm running Wish Ender because I'm busy. I want to get onto solo and something else. I don't want to test with like auto rifles and stuff like this and be stuck on Lightblade because I'm using a dumb auto rifle. I'll just get my clear. It's interesting enough. Banner of War is being used. You're getting to see new Strand gameplay, which I didn't expect. I actually totally forgot there was going to be a new Strand aspect for each class. I haven't, like I said, even though I do, the funny thing about me is, even though I do YouTube, I don't watch much YouTube. Especially when I'm playing a new season or a new game or something. I tend not to watch too much. I like to figure out stuff on my own. But if I am niggled or annoyed by something and I don't know, I maybe will quickly look up a video. But for the most part, I don't watch many videos. Unless it's off certain content creators that I support. So I haven't watched all the new Strand gameplay. So I'm learning it organically on my own. Which I've always preferred doing that. Because then I can learn every single detail about it. And you not only learn from watching a video, but you learn doing something with something. If you don't learn like that, like that's how I learn. I'm a visual learner. So I'll learn through visual from me actually doing it. So the more this season goes on, the more I learn about Banner of War and all the new Strand aspects and all this stuff. That's just how I learn it. There might be details that I miss along the way, but by halfway through the season, I'll have learned everything because there'll be content creators that's made all the details. Now, when you shackle an enemy type, like red bars and stuff, the shackle is longer, from what I can see. Like, longer than what a champ is. So there's different cooldown rates going on there. So that's also decent, because it means I can still shackle red bars. You still want to do that from time to time. You still, you know... The shackle grenade is a panic button, and it's there for you. Yes, it's reduced, it's less, but it doesn't really matter. It's still doing what it done last season. They've probably put it in line because they made the explanation, which was actually really well written. Whoever wrote that was really well written. They said shackle grenades interfere with your combat experience, and they basically void all combat. They want stasis to do this, not Strand. Right, I love that explanation. That's good. But we're still no stasis mods. Hello, there's no stasis mods. Artifact. So yes, they're on the right tracks, but they've done nothing with stasis. Is kind of like still. I don't want to run stasis. I'd still rather run Strand. It's just more interesting, more fun. So they're on the right tracks. Maybe they'll do some more buffs with stasis, I don't know. So I haven't really discussed this because I've already explained it in a solo GM, but I'll explain it again for those that didn't see last season's video. I've got a Sparrow on that ship, which if you were watching carefully earlier, you would have seen how I'd done that. So this revolves around you going into a public space, spawning your Sparrow in, and bringing the Sparrow onto the tomb ship at the start of the strike, to then have the Sparrow on your tomb ship so that you can skip the swamp. This is the absolute best go-to strat, and there's no way for Bungie to nerf this, because when you're in a social space, you have to. Well, actually, there is a way of doing it, but we don't want them to do that. So I'm not going to give a suggestion on how they do it. There is a way of doing it, but I don't want them to because I actually love this strategy of having your Sparrow. Because let's face it, the swamp section's fantastic, but it's annoying as a GM or as a Master Nightfall, even Legend Nightfall. You run an LFG Nightfall right now on Hero, and I guarantee one of your fire team members will die, and that's even on Hero. Because too much moths. The mechanic is from Crota's End, which is a fantastic mechanic. It's from the opening encounter from Crota's End. They've lent that mechanic with the lanterns and the explode and stuff. That's fantastic, but on a GM and stuff, you're annoyed by it. I have a different perspective on it. It's just annoying. I just want to get to the boss. I want to get platinum rank. I want to kill champs. I don't want to have to deal with like being Weight of Darkness. This is a raid mechanic. I don't know why they've really got it in here, to be honest, but it's here. It's a thing. But that's how you bypass the whole thing with a Sparrow. So now we're on the relax section. You want to get a stun immediately, and then try and take out as many Scorn enemies as you can, because don't worry about doing too much damage, because the Ravengers or whatever they're called, right? They're gonna push you. They can freeze you and then kill you actually, and they are deadly. I let them get too close here, so I done my melee. See, now that we have Banner of War, you need to look at your melee abilities differently, because it spawns from a melee attack as well. So you get 3 charges, right? You don't want to waste those charges by using them as a traversal option. Only sometimes. But when you're in combat, you want to save them, because they're also a panic button. So if there's a bunch of thrall chasing you and you're worried about dying, do your melee attack. Even just do it once. You will proc the aspect Banner of War, and you'll get that health regen for however long it is. So use it as a utility option. Don't spam your melee too much. It depends on your strength stat and stuff. Might want to maybe look at strength builds this season, which I haven't got strength stat armor for, because we never run strength builds. Only like Graviton Hunter forfeit on the Hunter. That's really... But I might have a look at it, see what happens this season in terms of that. Obviously, it'd be really good with Monte Carlo. But here's the thing with the Monte Carlo thing, like I've said previously. Monte Carlo's good and all, and it's fantastic what it's doing in the game right now. But it ain't no GM weapon. I can solo a GM with Monte Carlo, and I've done that. And it will be possible to do it with Lightblade. But I'm just saying, because Wishend is in the game, it spoils the sandbox a little bit. Because it's just that much better than any other weapon that no other exotics really have much of a chance. Like I say, you're going to see a lot of Monte Carlo videos up, but that's just because they're trying to get YouTube views or Twitch views. If you have an objective outlook, we know that Monte Carlo is a fun exotic, but it ain't no Wishender. And that's just what it is. If you want to solo a Lightblade, a GM or Master, then Wishend is going to be 10 out of 10, and Monte Carlo will be 1 out of 10. Because Monte Carlo's an auto rifle, suffers some range drop off, not very good in endgame. Good in middle game content, increases your melee damage, right, but we're not meleeing that much to warrant it. So this is what I'm saying, you need to have the right outlook, and people are hyping themselves up about a gun that is good, but it's no GM gun, alright? Because it's an auto rifle. Until they change how auto rifles work in the game, then that'll always be the case. But auto rifles are meant to be a medium to short range weapon. Bows have always been far superior to auto rifles because they have almost infinite range. Especially Wishender. Wishender has infinite range. So, I'm not saying they nerf Wishender either. I don't know if that's the answer. Maybe, I don't know. But, you're not going to see many people like pick Monte Carlo as a solo GM option. Team-wise, yes, all day long. In a fire team, you can do what you want. Get Monte Carlo on. Do some stuff with it, with the catalyst. And all that stuff. But that's just my take on it as of this week. But I am excited to get the gun and use it. Right? That doesn't mean I'm not excited for it. I am. And I do like what they've done with the gun. No doubt. So what I'm doing here is I'm exploiting basically I kill the hive enemies as quickly as possible. So I'm actually playing a game of save the target. Because if you save the Scorn Champ up, the Scorn Champ will open the Shriekers up for you. It's a good strategy. It just means that we can kill Shriekers from back here, and we've dealt with the entire thing from back here. Because if you do kill all the Scorn enemies, and there's only hive enemies left, the Shriekers close up, and you've got to deal with them at a closer distance. And Shriekers melt you. You can't even peek them for a second or two. They do melt. Even though they do void damage, it's just because the damage they do to you. I didn't even use Woven Mail in this. And I probably should have done. Right? Because you pick up orbs. So I recommend that you use Woven Mail. I didn't even use it. It's something that I should have used. But if you know what you're doing, it doesn't really matter. But for most players, they should be using Woven Mail. I am using the Shackle build, but I didn't realise it would be to the point where it's 3-second cooldown. So a lot of my fragments are wasted in a sense, a little bit. The Suspend and Burst one isn't a waste though. That one needs to be on, 100%. That one's critical. I love that one. So we're debuffing the boss first of all, and then we're going to use our super. Because we've got the Synthoceps buff, we're going to do massive damage. Let me remind you, that's massive damage we've just done there. And we've got Banner of Water proc, right? Which I love it. It's like a big staff on your head. I love that. And it means that I can play aggressively with a Roman super, which otherwise you wouldn't be able to play as aggressive. Because I've got Banner of War, I was able to really... I got that Strand restoration, let's call it, whilst in my super doing out good damage. That's half of a bar, and we're at minus 20 delta, so that's so good. So I am talking about semi-auto striker and rapid fire ranger. You need these two mods on. The reason being is because they're going to give you basically infinite surges, and now people have said they're bugged. I could confirm for me this week they have not been bugged. I've been using semi-auto striker, which gives you double armor charge when you have no armor charge. This then leans into your surges. I've got a kinetic surge on because I could only fit one because I needed recuperation. That's one mod. I needed a scavenger, although I could have took scavenger off, but I preferably like to have the scavenger, right? And then a surge. So I had at least one surge, which does buff with Rapid Fire Ranger, which I believe is a 15% debuff. So I've been told, as long as they're not lying to me. 15% debuff, plus a surge. I don't know the situation with overcharged weapons. I haven't had time to test whether it's bugged, it's not bugged. I don't have a clue. I haven't really got time to test it, so you'll have to ask someone else about it. I'm not sure. I hope that it is fixed, but I don't know. So, once we've done with the first phase, make sure that you get your bearings with the room. So the point of reference, think of this map as a clock. Your point of reference is the statue. So looking away from the statue, not towards. This is how I do it. My strategy for the Lightblades, opposite of probably what people would think. Most people would do it right. If I'm looking towards the statue, it's left and then right. But obviously your perspective is different. I look away from the statue. So looking away from the statue, right? Looking away from it, left side is the spawn of the Lightblade Warrior that spawns intermediate phase. Between phase 1 and 2 you get one, a Lightblade Warrior that is, and then between phase 2 and 3 you get a Lightblade Warrior. The Lightblade Warrior, you need to know where, you need to stand on that same side every time to get some initial damage in. Rocket, maybe don't use your shackle. You're not going to be able to shackle these Lightblade Warriors, because I'm led to believe there's two different types of Lightblade Warriors in this. Well, there is. There's the one in the social space. Well, it's not a social space, but it kind of is, where the term ships are. Those are like mini Lightblade Warriors. Even though there's no visual indication of it, they are different. They can be shackled. Whereas these Lightblade Warriors cannot be shackled. You can throw a shackle at them, but it won't shackle them. It'll just do some strand stuff. That's all it'll do. So don't rely on that, is what I'm saying. Use a super as well. Like, do your initial damage and then super, because the thing about it is you're in your super as you kill them, which means if a knight melees you, you survive it as you crush the ghost. Because these knights, they don't one-shot on master, but they do on GM. One melee swipe, boom, you're dead, that's it. And there'll be no point putting on melee resistance because you're not doing it right. Although you would survive if you put that on. You want double arc concussive damage as a resist. You must have that on. So the strategy isn't to resist the knight, it's just to dodge the knight. No, don't create a problem for yourself. Just dodge the knight. And if the knight is going to hit you while you crush a ghost, you're going to be in your super. That's why the strategy is foolproof. But you need to follow the steps if you're going to do it like this. If you don't, you're going to increase the risk of death. So I'm now manipulating the champion spawns. Like I said, the room's on a dial. So if I kill that knight exactly where I was on left hand side, I do a rocket and a shackle. Now, aim assist beat me here. This is so unfortunate. You don't... This isn't really the super's fault, it's the tracking. I was merely swinging and it was tracking the boss rather than the champ. The champ was dead. He had 2% HP. This is probably the worst part of the run. But I was beaten by it because of tracking. The aim assist of the melee was hitting the boss rather than the champ. Because the champ was 2%. So, if my strategy had worked properly, I would have killed that champ no problem. Because the idea is to spawn kill one of the barriers. So now I've got to play harder than what I need to. Because now I've got double barriers, a boss chasing us. But at least you can see what the gameplay would be like when you're up against the wall like this. Now we've got Rapid Fire Ranger, right, and the Semi-Auto Striker. Which means we have access to buff and debuff pretty easily. Right? Now I am pressured a little bit, so I am going to miss crits. Because the way this works is that you need to rotate as you do damage. That's why Wish End is best in slot for Lightblade, because of this gameplay that you're seeing right here, of the do damage, move round, do damage, move round, like that, like you can see now. So I'm able to stop the ads from really killing me. I'm able to micromanage the boss, not too difficult, while doing this rotation. Never back on yourself. Pick a direction, clockwise, anti-clockwise, whatever you want, but pick a direction. Don't back up on yourself when there's loads of enemies, because they will literally follow you around. Sometimes there's RNG where they jump from mid to left to right and all that stuff, but for the most part, if you go around in one direction and pick your opportunity to when you kill your barrier. Like right now is a fantastic opportunity for me to take the barrier because he's in mid. The best position the champ can be in right now for me, and he will go there. We did shackle. Look how ineffective the shackle was. It was still okay though, and I was able to get some benefit out of it. The champ is still with full HPs, which is what I'm waiting on. I'm actually micromanaging the boss right now, looking where he is. Rocket, fusion, so good. We get to kill the champ. That situation, the scenario that you just saw, would have played out very similar on GM to what it did there. In actual fact, if I'd redone this, I probably wouldn't have had problems with a barrier. I would have been able to kill that barrier. It was just because of aim assist, tracking the boss rather than the champ. It was just how it played out. There is always going to be some RNG when you do Lightblade, but that's sort of the catch to Lightblade, is that it's a fun GM, full strike in general, because of the different scenarios. Every time you play it's slightly different, isn't it? Every time you play the boss reacts a little bit different, or does this or does that, because his move pool, let's say, right, is slightly different. There's manipulations that you can do, like you can see now, where you make him jump and stuff, but when you're dealing with barriers, he'll react different every time. Different, and there's no way of really controlling how the boss works. Which is why a Roman Super with the resistance that you get from a Roman Super on Strand is best in slot for this fight, I believe. The best setup in the game. Either this or Hunter. Not so much Warlock, because the Warlock Super is a one and done super, so you're not getting damage resistance. Well, you will for a couple of frames, but not for the... You'll only get it for when you do your super, and then it's done. Whereas a Roman Super, you've got a lot of time of damage resistance and stuff. So the second set of barriers, I'm also going to control them. So my point of reference to take them is from middle. If I take the boss's HP down to a half HP, I will spawn the barrier from right side door, which is the opposite side to the first set of barriers. So it goes left, right, left on how I take the triple set of barriers. So we're on the second set of barriers, and I'm waiting for this barrier. So I'm doing edging the boss. This is HP manipulation. Edging the boss until the exact moment, because we need to get this right, for the barrier to spawn. Didn't spawn on that one, but notice I'll only do damage when I jump over to right. So I'm letting him jump up. We'll do our damage, break his head off, barrier spawns out of the door every time. We can shackle, rocket, super. Look at the melt on that. Also, we've got Elemental Fury, an artifact mod. Right? that actually does more damage to champions when they're stunned. We actually take out both champs and all the adds with one super, with Banner of War procced. Do you understand how good this is? I don't think you probably don't understand how good it is, but it's just probably like one of the best setups in the game for Lightblade because of this. We didn't have access to this last season, Banner of War, which did exist last season, just they didn't want to launch it until now. And it's like, it's too good of a mod, this. It really is. I don't want them nerfing it either. Leave it like this for 12 months. Leave it as it is. That's what I want, because it is fantastic, and it worked with swords. So I can imagine. Well, I've actually already seen some. I've actually already seen Selfu do it. You know what he was going to do. So he was going to put on Banner of War, Lament. I think he did, at least. It looks that way on his thumbnail. Banner of War. It's going to work with swords, right? So it'll be fantastic with the Lament build, and you could put strongholds on as well. How consistent that would be as opposed to this, it wouldn't be as consistent, because if you run Lament in this, there's a higher chance of death because you're operating close to the enemies, and there's an increased chance of death. So whilst Lament strongholds would be a way of soloing GM or Master, it wouldn't be as safe as just doing Wishender / Hothead Rocket. I'm still using Hothead because Explosive Light. I know there's other rockets that are starting to outclass Hothead, bait and switch and stuff, but for Lightblade, because of how you get orbs, Explosive Light's just best in slot for usability factor and stuff. If I start trying to do bait and switch with these champs, it could result in a death whilst I'm sort of proccing bait and switch. The boss could come over, stomp us. I could be standing stationary for far too long, whereas this build's more gun and run. So Explosive Light's a better perk for Lightblade than what bait and switch is. However, you're going to get more damage from bait and switch. You can make it work. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying being able to just pick up an orb and then have Explosive Light a buff, right, to then proc a debuff with Rapid Fire Ranger. I see no problem with just using Explosive Light for this. But for other things, dungeons and stuff, you want to go bait and switch. Especially if you're running like Izanagi's Burning or Witherhoard and stuff. So this phase is different because I don't have a super and I couldn't be bothered waiting for one. So what I'm going to do instead is do map rotation whilst the Lightblade Warrior's up. When you're doing this, you need to play on the opposite side of the map. You can't really play where he is, especially when he's in his super, because he has one-shot capabilities, I believe, on this difficulty as well, if both shields hit. So if both of his Captain America shields hit, you die. Now people would say, well, run Void Resist. No, you don't run Void Resist because you need Arc Resist for everything else. Don't be one-minded about it. The same situation is, if you can't out-resist an enemy type because you're trying to out-resist some other enemy types, then just run away from the enemy type that you're scared of. In this case, it's Lightblade Warrior until we get Super, which once I did get Super, I used it because on Phase 3, there's going to be the last set of barriers, but we're not going to deal with those last set of barriers until the A. So Alak Hul, the Lightblade HP bar at the bottom, they spawn in at A, the last A, on the first A, sorry, of his name. That's when they trigger, so it'd be a 25% HP, I believe. That's when they spawn, so I don't need a super right away. I just need so much super, which I'm gonna get. There's some orbs on the floor. I'm gonna still pick them up even if I didn't have if I did or did not have a super, because I want Explosive Light for my rocket. We're not gonna kill the melee knight, of course, because that's the trigger. We don't do the trigger until we're ready. So right now I need to scavenge some ammo. 2 rockets is not enough for the final phase. You could technically kill a barrier with just Wishender, but it'd be handy just to have rockets. The strategy is more consistent if I have at least 4 or 5 rockets for the final phase is enough, and I've got 5 rockets. Again, that's just reinforcing my point of run scavengers. Yes, I could run a more damage build with surges, but then you're sacrificing ammo. So if I didn't have a surge on, I would have less ammo than what I do now. Sorry, scavenger mod, which is an artifact mod. Make sure that you're always having that on when you've unlocked your artifact mods. So first set of barriers is left, second set of barriers is right. The final set of barriers is gonna be left again, but behind us this time, not in front of us. So remember, when I was on that left hand side, right, which I'm actually on, I refer this as left hand side, this is my left, they spawned where I am sitting right now, just where I was sitting. They're going to spawn behind me here, right there. I've just milled over the position, you can see it. But this is a little harder to do because you need to trigger the boss at the right time when you're standing on left hand side, lest the barriers won't spawn here, they'll spawn somewhere else. Because wherever you trigger in Lightblade, whether it be HP or whatever, or a knight killing a knight, the barriers will spawn depending on your position at the time of death. It works on a clock. Now there are many different combinations of spawn of the champs. You just need to pick one. You need to pick to a routine. So there's lots of different combinations. I'm not going to learn all the combinations. I'm going to stick to what I know and what I want to do, which is left, right, left. And I know my rotation exactly. That's the rotation I've picked. I would just say to you, use my rotation. What's the difference? Or make your own. But if you make your own, make sure you remember it, of course. So if you're always in middle for the trigger, then the champions are going to spawn slightly different. Just depends on what you want to do. I would just recommend that you copy someone's. I copied this champ rotation off someone else, so I've just used it ever since when I found it out. And now this is just my Lightblade strat. It's ingrained in me. So when Lightblade comes up as a GM, it's ingrained in me. The muscle memory's there to just remember, right, this is where the champs spawn. And how I do my strategy, Strand's going to be best in slot for me because I can get that panic button of shackle, even though it is 3 seconds. Yeah, so what? At least I've got a stun on the barrier without having to do anything at all. Just throw a grenade. Then I go into super. I get my damage resistance. I re-shackle him with the super. And then I go for the melt because I've got Symphoceps that procs with all the acolytes. And you get additional ability damage to champs this season when you stun them. So it's literally going to be a win-win. It's going to melt champs. And if you're good enough with the super, you can actually kill both champs. There's a bit of luck required as well, but it can happen. So now I'm looking at his HP bar. We're down to L, just on the top side of L. So I need to make sure that I get this exactly right. If memory serves me right, it's around about top side of A. No, it's not. It's L. I got that wrong. So it's not. We actually kind of messed up a little bit there, but we got the spawn exactly right. Just I missed my shackle, but still was able to suspend the champ and kill him, just because of how good it was. I actually re-shackled the second champ, got a rocket off. I think I get a debuff as well and kill him. So that gameplay was really good. There was a mistake made though. If we're going to critique it, the shackle was missed because I was pressured by the boss. But overall, you can see, look how easy this is. I've got Banner of War as well. So if there was a couple more ads left alive, then we would have a fighting chance with this build. So that was really good. Now I couldn't remember, for some reason I forgot. I can't remember if there was a second wave of thralls. There is. I just couldn't remember. That's why I was playing a little bit nervous here, coming up, because I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember if there was a wave of thralls or not. Because I could have overcommitted to damage, not thinking tunnel vision, and then thrall spawn, and I've missed that wave and they kill me. So I was actually confused right now. If there is a wave, I saw them. So I need to make sure. I use my shackle, not seeing them straight away, so I should have saved a shackle for those thrall jumping. So I'm going to use a rocket because it doesn't really matter right now. Because once the wave of thrall are killed, it's a done deal. Providing that the boss doesn't magically kill us and Lightblade Alak Hul can do that. He can magically kill you sometimes. So you need to be on point. Use your movement tools as well, your melee ability, if needed. But you can also use it on the Thrall and spawn in another Banner of War. I don't know the intrinsic cooldowns of it, if it's got a cooldown, but I could have easily spawned in another Banner of War if I wanted. There's some rogue Thrall, so I'm not looking to engage with the boss. I'm not looking to do damage to him much. I'm wanting to get shot of these Thrall, because obviously there's no radar on, right? So if you leave them for too long, you start doing DPS, forget this Thrall up, you're dead. And that would be a dumb play if I'd done that. So my focus was get all the Thrall down, and then that's it, just me and the boss. We can activate a debuff with Rapid Fire Ranger, right? And then start using Fusion. The Fusion melts him, Cartesian Coordinate, because it's got Vorpal on it. So it will do, which is a 15% buff. Granted, it's not arc or whatever or anything like that, but it doesn't really matter. It's an it should work as an overcharged weapon, providing that buff's working. But I haven't tested to say whether it does or doesn't. To me, it doesn't matter either way. I'm just here to give you the information on the solo clear. I'm not here to do everything. See, some people want everything off me. They want the information if stuff's bugged. They want the information on what's best right now. I can't do everything. I am just one man. I'm not a full team of people testing stuff. I'm not a hive mind, because some of these YouTubers are a hive mind. Literally, people will go to Astacross and data and stuff and tell them information. No one's coming here telling me stuff. I figure out all my stuff on my own. So I haven't got information on every single thing as it comes. So that was a solo for this. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.